Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Yeah, I didn't do anything yesterday. Well, I can't say I didn't do anything yesterday. Didn't do any modeling yesterday, any model working, because I was being coronated. I got a crown put in yesterday, so I was spending yesterday in the dentist chair, and then after I got home, I just didn't. Hopefully, you can understand. I just didn't feel like doing anything. So we write off Monday, and we start on Tuesday. Now, I will tell you that I have been anxious, and here's why. I will show you. It's on the table here. One swift and very bad camera move later. You see this? You see this? This is pack 10 of the big Agora Optimus Prime. Now, I've been building this as a separate series of videos, and you may or may not be watching them. That's fine. But I got this on Sunday. It is now Tuesday, and I still have no instructions. They've not posted the instructions. Now, I've been on Agora's website. I've been pounding that refresh button like a nerd before Comic-Con, waiting for tickets. I have been waiting, and I've been checking hourly to see whether they have posted the instructions yet. And no luck. This is going to be the upper legs and the pelvis. I can tell that from the parts. But as to how exactly to put them together, I don't have those instructions. So I'm at a loss. I've been wanting to put this thing together, and since I can't do anything with it, and I need the table space, I'm going to have to regrettably put it back in the big box. So back in the big box it goes. You can hear all the noise it's making as it's going back in. So these guys go back in the box. Well, what does that leave me to do? I've got a couple of projects that I can be doing in the interim. And trust me, I'll get back in front of the camera. Trust me, you're looking at the empty table. I'm going to be continuing to check the website, and if it does show up today, I will stop what I'm doing immediately. And you will know because I will have posted that video. But it hasn't happened yet, so we got to make Plan B. Now, Plan B was going to be one of two things. I had gotten the N1 model last week, a week or so ago, from Steve over at Cult TV Man. But Ken Spriggs is building this right now, and he's doing such a marvelous job that I frankly, I'm waiting to see what he does so that I can steal all his good ideas for that. So I'm going to put this to the side and let Ken finish his before I start on mine. So that goes to the side. Well, what does that leave? Well, you remember when I was saying something about the other day about it having been nice enough weather to do some resin cleanup? That was true, and it wasn't. It was nice weather, but I didn't get any resin cleaned because even though it was warm, it was raining. And there's no cleaning resin in the rain. Might make for a nice 70s love ballad, but it does not make for actual good practice. So what I'm going to do, it's dry out there now, it's sunny out there now, but it's also fairly cold. So it's going to be a matter of ducking in and out and taking good sweet time. And some of the most tedious cleaning that I have to do on this particular project, I can do inside here because they are small, fairly reserved parts, and they do need a lot of cleaning. But I'm anticipating using the Sonic Saber, which does not raise dust when it cleans. It cuts straight through. It's not like using a Dremel, and it's not like anything that will raise a cloud. So as long as I can maintain it and keep the area clean whilst I'm doing it, I think I should be in good enough stead to take on this big project. And what is this big project, you ask? Well, it's a big project that I have no business, absolutely no business in doing because of the amount of space it's going to take up once it's done. Right now it is still in its box, and it will never take as little space as it does right now. As soon as I get it out of the box and start putting it together, it's going to take up big space. And regretfully, I may have to give up, like the Well, there's a bed I only use a few hours a night. The refrigerator I kind of need to keep. I might have to lose the couch in the living room. I don't know. Such sacrifices need to be made. But let's get some parts out, and I bet you'll identify it just with the first part. Here's the first part. Any clues? Any guesses? Yes, it is the Randy Cooper Sandcrawler. As you can see, the amount of cleanup that needs to happen on these resin parts. Randy has a reputation for having parts that need to be cleaned up, and this one lives up to that reputation. It's in excellent shape. The casting on it is still very good, but it is something that's going to need a lot of cleanup. Now, the most important parts to clean up are going to be these, the treads. And the treads, because they're cast this way, have to be removed from this edge, and then you got to clean up the area in between. Now, luckily, they only need to be cleaned pretty much on one side, on the outside, because of the way it sits. You only see the outside edge. The inside edge is going to be more forgiving. Do it this way. The inside edge is going to be more forgiving. And I'm thinking that I should be able to get clean what I need to get clean with the Sonic Saber. It's going to be something like that, and like that, and this could take most of a week just cleaning these up. So there's those 4, and then the other 4 for the other side. So that's what we're going to start on today. So you can see why, after looking at this, why I would much rather be working on Optimus Prime than this. So we're going to pull out the Sonic Saber and see what kind of cleaning we can do on this. Okay, meet the parts. This is an unapologetically huge kit. And there's no way to go about it. Well, there's one way to go buy it. That's go to Randy Cooper's website and say you want a Sandcrawler. Tell him Lou sent you. But there are just so many parts here that, this bag here makes up just the tread sections, the inner and outer frames of not the treads themselves. The treads go over top of them. The nose piece is one big resin cast piece. The underside frames. This is the tub that everything sits in. If that gives you somewhat of an idea of the size of this thing. Beautiful. Now there's and again, here's the parts that make up the cabin, and some other surface details. This is a bag of nothing but the big engine parts that go on the top and the back. This is what we're going to start with, because this is what the instructions say to start with, and that's only way to do this is breaking it down into small, manageable sized pieces. Again, this is the bottom track. This will go on there, something like that. It's going to be friggin' huge. And there's no two ways about it. So, some of this, if I get to a sticking point where I can't work on it because of the weather or the climate or the conditions, then I will have to stop and work on something else. But that's basically a side of it. If you take this as being the side, minus the front that goes on it, this is a good, I would say 3-foot long model by the time we're all done. Let's see, if you take this part, add it onto the front. Yeah, it's huge. It's friggin' huge. This is beautiful. I'm glad all of this geometry is in one part so that we don't have to try to figure out all those angles, but that's the smiling face of it. If I were a younger man, I would cut the front out and make that ramp opening. But since we really didn't know about that ramp opening, until I think it was Book of Boba Fett where they showed that open for the first time, other than in some production artwork, but or conceptual artwork, but actually showing it open on screen so that you could see what was behind it. I don't think they did anything resembling that until Book of Boba Fett. So we won't be doing that. We're going to try to make this look like a good old-fashioned, old-school, New Hope version Sandcrawler that sold the droids to Uncle Owen, that kind of thing. So I'm going to remove everything from this table that I am not immediately working with, and I think that means getting back to just that one bag full of the upper engine deck parts. Oh, my friends, I've been horribly betrayed. Horribly betrayed. I tried using the sonic saber on resin. I don't know whether it's Randy's resin. Honestly, it's the first time I've tried it on this. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't quite cut the mustard. It doesn't cut the resin either. So we did find something that the sonic saber doesn't like. So that means doing this the hard way, which probably just added a week to the job at hand. So, yep, gonna have to get out the other various instruments of sanding and grinding, which means doing it in much smaller doses out on the back deck. So, good luck with that. I'm not gonna take the camera out on the back deck, because I tell you, it's cold outside, and it's going to be a matter of leaving the sander running and then going out and touching it to it and then running back in and to keep warm. So until we get another truly warm day out, that's how it's going to have to happen. So best laid plans of mice and men. You know how that goes. Okay, it's the end of the day, and this mess may not look much more organized or clean than it did when I started today, but trust me, it is. I've got a lot of stuff done. I've got all these not completely cleaned off. I still have to clean the inside edges, but I got what I think is going to work for at least getting the majority of the flash off of these. I've got a lot of the major pieces clean. Getting I hadn't really intended on going into some of the major pieces, but it meant getting the big tools out. But there was a big chunk that had to come off this bottom edge of both sides that I've taken off, and getting some of the backfill out. This is what I call backfill. When something is cast and it's cast in a mold just like this, where it rises up and you get this little edge that has to be sanded down around all of the sides. Basically what you need to do is kind of like lay it upside down on the belt sander and knock that Resin edge around everything off till it comes out nice and flat. So while I had the big belt sander out, I did that. Still lots of work to be done with smaller files, chisels, picks and axes and everything else, but we got a lot of the large scale stuff sanded off today, and it'll take 2 or 3 more rounds before we're anywhere near a finished piece. But yeah, this is what it takes to get it clean, and this is only day 1 of it. Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday. Now, I spent the entirety of today putting together pack 10 of the Agora Optimus Prime kit, and kind of put the Sandcrawler in a box. But that's okay. Really didn't lose any time on it, because today was a wet and rainy day and I couldn't really do any more cleaning outside or any sanding. But so as to not make today a total wash, I will pull out some parts that I can work on and try to actually glue 2 pieces together, thereby starting the grand construction. Alright, I've got the first 2 parts epoxied together. We're on the way. Now I think before we close up for today, I will put these guys in, get them glued down, and then we'll be able to say we at least did something on the Sandcrawler today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Sandcrawler build. It is Thursday, the gateway to the weekend, and the cleanup continues. Now here is the grand total of what I got done yesterday. But you know that. I just put a little putty over this joint, do a little sandy and kind of clean that up. Now this kit is so big, so large, and so huge that there's really only one true way to deal with it, and that is piece by piece. It's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we're going to put this subassembly to the side, and we're going to start addressing these pieces one by one. And where we need to start, with all good things, you start with the foundation. And in this case, it is this tub, which is one cast piece of resin. It has cleanup galore that needs to be done to it, but that's, you know, the nature of the beast. But all in all, it's very well, it doesn't rock, it's very well cast. It's got this phenomenon which I call the glossiness, where you can tell this was molded this way and the cream rises to the top, and in this case, this is the top of the mold, or the open part of the mold. And what that does is it gives you a rim where you pour resin, and then as it cures, it shrinks down a little bit. Well, the sides of it stick to the side of the mold, and then it kind of finds its own level in the middle. But what that gives you is when you demold it, it gives you this raised edge around the whole perimeter. And that's noticeable here, which was cast the same way. You can see here's probably a good example where I didn't get quite all of it sanded off yet, but you can see how it's got that raised bit there. It's not quite flat. So there's nothing really to do about that except for get a nice flat file or a flat sanding block, and you just go around it and you kind of knock off that top rim, that top edge. And that's what I'm doing with this piece. I'm cleaning up all of the edges. I am getting ready to attach the side pieces to it. I've gone through Randy's instructions with a fine-tooth comb. I think I understand them, which, you know, is a recipe for trouble. But it looks like these pieces need to go on the sides here, and that's going to help give me my level line for the sidewalls. The sidewalls need a lot of help. The way they were cast, they've got, first of all, they had a spare piece along the bottom here that I've taken to the belts. It's a saw. It's a bandsaw. That's what it is. It's a bandsaw. I lost my word there for a second. I took it to the bandsaw and I cut this edge off, and because it was like another 1/4 of an inch sticking down. And going through his photos, it determined that that was extraneous waste that needed to come off. I still need to sand this on a flat surface where, you know, I can grind it like that and just kind of sand it down to get it close to the edge of what it needs to be, and then it'll go something like, actually I think that, yeah, it goes that way. But having these side pieces on will help align those sidewalls when it comes time to put them down. But the ones I can put on now and not fear of running out of well, not running afoul of it being straight and square, is I can go ahead and put these side pieces on. I think I want to do that first and go from there. But before I do that, I need to make sure everything is sanded smooth and level, and there are no little resin demons that are going to stick up in the way. So it's still kind of coolish outside. I can't do any big sanding, which isn't what I need to do on the sidewalls. So I'm doing what I can, and I'm cleaning up. I shouldn't even have the mask off while I'm doing this, but I'm talking to you good people. That's why I don't have my respirator on, because this is resin and you don't want to be breathing it in. Alrighty, work is continuing. Now, remember when I said a couple weeks ago about slowing down and taking my time with things? That's good. It's a good philosophy. I'm sticking to it. But when it comes to this Randy Cooper kit, and anybody who's built a Randy Cooper kit knows that it comes with a certain amount of cleanup and getting parts ready. And I won't say fixing things, but adapting things. So the good news is I can work as fast as I want to and still not have a lot to show for it, because it does take a lot of elbow grease that you're not really going to see at the end. So I don't have to worry about, taking my sweet time with this, because I can work 8 hours a day on it and still not get a lot done each week, which is good. I mean, that's how I'm looking at things. And I have determined that there's going to have to be a certain amount of reconstruction that needs to get done. These two sidewalls need a massive amount of cleanup on the inside, just to remove things like this, just that edge, just the boogers in between supports that are keeping the parts from going together very well. That's to be expected. What I'm doing is finalizing my plan of attack, and I think it's going to be putting these side pieces on first, because what that does is it increases the amount of ledge that I've got here, and that ledge is going to be vital when it comes to putting the sidewalls on, that I have plenty of glue surface and plenty of ledge for them. So that's why I'm going to do that first. See, I had to put an F here to remind me where the front is. I keep thinking that this is the front because this is the front because of that slanted edge. I think that goes up to the door. It doesn't. That goes to the engines in the back. So I can go ahead and put these guys on, and then I can start cleaning these up to match. Where I think the alteration is going to have to happen is in this front piece here. I think it's going to need to be furred out a piece by the thickness of maybe one of my pieces of the gray Trovasil plastic, which is this thick stuff that I used for the walls on the visitor board. I think it needs to come out about that much further. So if I put a piece of that and just glue it right to the front there, that's going to bring my front end into alignment. And if you've ever been on a Sandcrawler, going through the Tatooine desert, hitting those sarlacc holes, you know how quickly your front end can be pushed out of alignment. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and epoxy this down to this angle, making sure that that's right. I'm going to have to sand that a little bit, take care of these that don't quite match. Sand this down, and glue this down, but just the front end of it, because I need to kind of push it up and twist it back into alignment along the top here, because it's important that this edge here be flush. So we glue that in flush all the way down, and then we kind of make, again, getting this in camera, we kind of make this joint clean as we get to it. This is the joint that the nose attaches to. But I think what's important is to get this edge flush right like this, and then you can see the amount of gap we've got. If I show you that, that shows you the thickness of how much we have to overlap. So that's what I want to do. I want to get some accomplishment here on these side pieces. And then, like I said, once it warms up a little bit outside, it's still not quite there yet, then I can take this out on the back porch and just do a bunch of cleanup and get rid of these burrs and knock out that window and just do a lot more cleanup on this than it needs. Well, get all the cleanup done that it needs. Here we can see an alignment issue that I think is easily solved, but it does mean cutting into the kit. So Randy, if you're watching, you may want to avert your eyes now, because I'm about to do some surgery on your kit. You can see what's happening here is that this, when you glue it down parallel and all that, and you line those things up, you get some of this going on. And there's a gap here, and it's too long here, because if I do the same thing, you can see it's forcing it out. It's parallel down the whole length, but then it forces it out. And what I'm going to do then, I think, is just cut a piece of this off. I had thought about cutting this whole front off, but I think I think we can add on to that. I don't think that's the big holdup. This right here is the big holdup, and that's frankly going to be easier to cut than that. So we can splice something, we could put some filler in there to pull that back into shape, but cutting some of that out is going to be the best solution. Can you have too many clamps on two parts? Never, never, I say. Yes, that's some 5-minute epoxy and a bunch of clamps, including the two big ones on the back to hold that side piece in. We're going to give that an hour or so. We're going to let that sit. It's coming up on lunchtime, so I might as well take a break. And then we'll do the same for the other side. Okay, I've taken the clamps off of the first side and everything has settled down nicely. I'll do a quick sand some of the marks off of the where the clamps were. The nice thing about this subject, it being a Sandcrawler and all, is that the finish is going to get all dinged up and rusted and streaked and is brown to begin with. So I won't say that it's impossible to screw up, but the finish on it is going to hide a lot of imperfections. I mean, in fact, if you look at Randy's pictures on his site, you can see the discerning model maker could see where the paint job, or where the smudges and everything is kind of hidden some wonky joinery, and that's completely understandable and acceptable. A, it's a resin kit, and B, it's a resin kit of a Sandcrawler. This is not a sleek starship. This is not something that has, this is closer to a jalopy than it is a sleek starship. So we're going to have a bit of what's the phrase? It's going to hide a multitude of sins. That's the phrase I was thinking of. So now we're going to go ahead and do the other side and leave it to set up. And to do that, I've got to mix up yet more epoxy. I'm using 5-minute epoxy here, and I can see where it's going to be very likely that I'm going to have to run out and get some more because we are running low. So squeeze out some more. I've got the clamps on the ready. Each of these joints are taking quite a heady amount of the resin, so got to work pretty fast. Okay, I'll do that and we'll show you what the next set of clamps looks like. Okay, the collection of clamps is on the other side now. We're gonna see how we got this kind of, looks a little bit more unified back here now. I mean, might even have straightened out that back wall, who knows. So we're gonna let that sit, and then the next thing is see if it'll warm up enough that I can clean up those sidewalls. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. Be the last work day on the Sandcrawler for this week, and we start today by taking a step backwards. We broke these two pieces apart. The only two pieces I had started with putting together, I took them back apart because of the way that everything has to be warped and bent around to make everything fit. Now, Randy requires you to mount this in such a way and then boil and then pour water on it in such a way that it pulls in from the bottom. Well, I think it's easier just to break that apart, set it in place, and then glue it, and then not worry about trying to make all of the water fit, or make it fit by bending it in place afterwards. Now, I'm going to start calling this, instead of the Sandcrawler, I'm going to start calling it a warp shuttle, because we're getting to the walls, and the walls are very, very warped. I don't know if it wouldn't have been better if Randy hadn't have just made this 3 parts and cast them flat. It would be easier to straighten them out, certainly, but taking advantage of the widened ledge that I was able to achieve yesterday, this has to go like this on it, and then these support frames go inside to hold it in place, and they're kind of warped to begin with, so that goes like that, and it kind of fits the sidewall and then fits into the floor. There's still an amount of cleanup that has to be done along the bottom edge of this sidewall on both of the sidewalls before we can get too much further. That, of course, goes on the top, and then you've got the big hatch door over here, and then this is the rear side. Now, I will show you somewhat if I can get this. Is like a house of cards, because as soon as I get a piece on here, everything wants to fall over. So I'm trying to balance everything, but that sits something like that, and then both this wall and this wall need to be bent in. They need to be angled in at the front and the back, and I think, again, something that could have been easier just to have been made as 3 separate pieces. But I'm not going to second guess Randy. He's an expert at this. But it does make things a little bit more difficult than perhaps they need to be. And that's just that. I mean, it's a Randy Cooper build. You have to build in a certain amount of patience and craftsmanship when you are working on the Randy Cooper build. So it has gotten kind of warmed up outside. I've got an order in from Steve, so I can be letting the plotter do its due while I am outside. But there's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen. And I think I remember yesterday I was talking about that ridge, the inside ridge when something is molded, and like this. Here you can see it really well. That all has to be sanded down flush so that I can put this piece in like that up against it, and then this whole thing goes into this hole here. That's something that I could do easily enough. When you combine everything, it looks like that. So some cleanup on that, and then I can put these 3 pieces together. This piece, this roof piece, is cast remarkably flat, so not too many worries about that. It's just getting the sidewalls to join in. That's where the fun begins. Okay, I think I've come up with a workable solution, but it's going to mean going off the instructions and off the book even more than already. So I hope I'm not just making more work for myself and making a hash of this thing at the same time. As we go, front is on this side, back is on this side. It looks like, and I'm going to have to move this up here, I think. Yeah, that's going to give me more room to show what's going on. Let's move this around again so the front is facing that way. These walls are basically, the Sandcrawler is basically a cube up to this point. And then it curves in at the front and it curves in at the back. If I were to put a wall panel up, you might see it a little bit easier. As far as you get from here to here is a square box, and then this slants in and that slants in. So my goal for today would be to get that square box kind of glued in. Now, to do it the way that it wants to work, not the way the instructions say, but the way that it wants to work, because these resin pieces are kind of warped. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. They are kind of warped. To make it work the way it wants to work, I can use Randy's internal supports, if I can find where I put them. Where did I put? Oh, they're right here. I can use his internal supports, but I can't put them where he wants them to go. because this bracket going down the side does not allow it to have the right orientation front to back. I need it to span this entire side. There's going to be a little bit of a gap, not necessarily a gap, but a shortage on the back end where it doesn't quite fit. There's a gap, but I believe we can take that in with all of the greeblies that happen back there. Now, you could ask yourself, well, Lou, if there's a gap at the back and you're noticing that the front is a little short, doesn't that mean everything is just off a little bit? And if you had, I don't know if you can see that. See this little bit right here? If I had cut that off of the piece, this was molded into the piece, if I had cut that off and shifted everything, this side piece back, then we would have lined up front to back. As it is, we're a little bit forward here. We're a little bit long here, and it's about that same distance. We'd figure, okay, if I had just moved that back, then we would have normaled ourselves back out. But that wouldn't be the case, because you also have this plane and this plane to think about. And if I had shifted this back, there would be a big gap where this wouldn't, these planes wouldn't have matched. And we've got an access panel, or not an access panel, but a decorative panel that goes over top of that. And from everything that I saw, this was supposed to be one flat edge. There wasn't supposed to be any sort of back overhang. Now, I'm going to go check and hopefully don't embarrass myself by finding out that there was, but I don't think that there was. So, I think I'm going to end up cutting this front wall off anyway. But getting back to where I was talking about, since I moved this whole panel that 1/4 of an inch forward, these no longer work. I could still use the side walls. I could still use them, but I can't, or these guys here, I can still use them how he intends, but I cannot use them in the tracks that he wants me to use them in. So if I do this, then I can, front of the wall, I can line this up with the length of the wall that it wants to be at. I can use these supports as I need. Let me try to show you what I'm talking about here. And I can put this other side wall on, again using the supports to line up the squareness of it. There we go. And set this on the track the way it's supposed to be. Oh, hate when the clamps won't cooperate. Stop it. Okay, and then you go like that. Okay, those are my 4 walls, or 3 of the 4 walls. And I pull that forward. Now my front end is working correctly. This is where the big nose goes on. That front end is working correctly. It's lining up interiorly like it's supposed to. These aren't helping. These weren't helping. And now I can put the roof on, and I get my square box. I could band this up with rubber bands or tape or whatever, glue all that together, and that gives me my square box. And if that would be the place I would leave it to sit over the weekend, then I could come back in once those walls are secure and bend these front walls in to match the plane of the roof and bend the back walls in. Those need to be finessed into place and epoxied they're not going to cooperate by themselves because the walls are warped the way they are. I could try soaking them under the hot water to try to bend them into place. That didn't really work because I didn't have anything in particular big enough to soak this in. So I just ran it under hot water in the sink, and it flattened out a little bit, but not enough. And this is backwards. That's what's causing the problems. This needs to be going this way so that I have the full meat. There we go, the full meat of that side. I could go ahead and glue these support walls in to the sides of the walls if I wanted to, and I think what I'd like to do is maybe do one wall that way. Yeah, that's supposed to be this way. There we go. That way we got the full meat. I could do the supports on this side wall and actually glue this side wall in, and it would be in the right place front to back, and I could go as nuts as doing that, and then just attach the other side wall. So that's the goal for today. That's where I want to have this sitting for the weekend. I want to have it sitting where I can reinforce the heck out of it with epoxy and epoxy sculpt and all of the putties and fasteners and hardeners and the steel stick and everything else that I can to reinforce those, because once this is in place, this wall needs to get bent in just a little bit, and then this wall needs to get bent in just a little bit. So I think we're in a good place. I just need to psych myself up to start gluing something. Okay, just for grins, I put it together the way Randy says you're supposed to put it together. I gotta admit, it does look good. It does look good that way. I still have this overhang here, and if it weren't for these openings, I would just cut that off and not worry about it. I do like how the front attaches to everything. It does leave that horrible gap there, and it looks like, if I can find a pencil, I had it here a second ago, there it is. It looks like if I could cut that much off, we would be evened up again and everybody would be happy and yay and wonderful. But I don't like that hole being that close to it. That's the amount that would have to, I would have to make that flush with that front end, and then rebuild this wall here. Let me see, here's the piece that I cut off. It would come back in like that. Maybe I was wrong to cut that off. Maybe I was wrong to, I'll take the hit on that. I just don't understand why this is that much longer than it should be. If we square this up with the back, which is what that wants to do now, it means making the hole that much smaller than maybe, because by the time we put this back on, that's going to cover it up something like that. And there's a little insert that goes behind there. I'll have to look at the plans again, look at his finished pictures and see how that works, because this was the room that was allotted for those cutouts. I'll have to ponder that for a bit before I decide which way to go. Okay, here is the picture on, this is the reference that Randy sends with the model, with the kit, and we can see that lining up there. We can see that coming out about the center of that raised area. This porthole is lined up between these two, and then you see the cutout here, and there's an equal amount of frame all around that cutout, and it lines up with the front. You can see how it's lining up with the front of that edge, and there's an equal amount of cutout, and it lines up with that edge. Now take that over to the real world. Let me change my color balance, hold on. Okay, take this over to the real world. If I line that up with the back, that's still kind of in the center there of that greebly. That lines up there, but here we have the piece is a little bit longer than this cutout. This is where it should end, and if I'm going to have a standardized size around this cutout, then it needs to be that wide, but that puts it about 1/4 of an inch further forward than it should be. And that's no bueno, because everything else lines up on that line. So if I pull all of that forward, which was my goal, and then leave the tail out of the back as being not lined up, then everything works for the nose fitting on, but I can't use the internal wall support sockets on the inside. So it's somewhere between what's on the screen and what's here. This has stretched about 1/4 of an inch. If I could take 1/4 of an inch out of the center, this thing is glued on. It ain't ever coming out. It's epoxy dough. All get out. But if I could take 1/4 of an inch out of it, slide that back, then it would work. But I was going on the full length of this so that those angles at the back would match. Okay, ladies and germs, I've got the first wall glued. The first wall is glued at the bottom. It is glued all the way up the sides here on these supports. Again, I decided to go with the method that I was going to use, which does not rely on Randy's trenches here. I'm going to have all of my gap come out of the back, since I want the front end to be nice and level and even and square. I want that to work out correctly, so I'll take up all of my slop at the back, and that's that side on. I'm going to go ahead and I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and get the right side, or I guess this would be the left side. No, this is the right side. No, it's the left side. It's the left side. I gotta remember which is the front. Go ahead and get this side on, glue it the same way, and then start, I guess, reinforcing the all the joints that I can with epoxy. Just 5-minute epoxy lathered down the side of all of those, just to keep them in place, because we've got some bending to do. This has to be bent in, the front has to be bent in, it all has to line up. But yeah, I think we're on the road now. Alrighty, kids, both sides are on. Now what I want to do at this point is to well, give me a few more seconds for the CA to dry. The CA is what's tacking everything in place. I want to go over every single living one of these joints with 1 minute epoxy, just down the sides, along the bottoms. I want everything. I don't want any excuse for any of this to come loose up to this point, because this, I'm going to have to use the heat gun and heat that to where I can bend it in, because it's going to have to bend in a bit, and particularly like this to get the nose in. If I put the, well, if I take that off and I take this off and I lay the roof down, you can see how much that has to come in to make it line up. So that has to be bent in like that and tacked. The other one has to be bent in and tacked. And then the same thing has to happen at the rear end for the engine pieces. None of that's going to happen today. but I want the sides and everything that I've got glued here so far, I want that to be very, very well epoxied in place so that it can take the stresses when I start bending or warping the walls around. Now, maybe something else I can do before I finish up, and that is I can maybe put these inserts in. Since I can get into them from the inside, maybe I can pop those in place and have them epoxied in as well. But yeah, this is a good chunk of work for what needs to get done this week. Alrighty, I've got all the epoxy in, and it's going to be setting for the rest of the weekend. The roof, I've put the insert pieces in the top, and I've epoxied them as well. Gave everything a good how do you do with the epoxy. And this is where it's going to sit for the weekend. It's a whole heck of a lot to have gotten done. I even put a couple of the inserts in on the back wall here, since these are easy to get to now. Now these will be bent in sort of like that. Bent in and then glued down. So that's plenty of stress and strain that's going to be on the resin, which is why everything is belt and suspenders epoxied in. That's no small joke to say that this area needs a serious cleaning. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then probably take a shower before I get back on camera, because the dust gets everywhere. And that, my friends, was week one. Well, most of week one of the Sandcrawler build. I didn't start on Monday, so I can't really call it a full week. But getting the major shell done, getting the box done, or at least semi-situated, is a big amount of work for anybody for 1 week. So I'm not feeling too bad about the amount that I got done. Lots to do. I haven't even I have started on the treads, but not in any serious manner. That's going to take a good chunk of time to do. That'll be an epic into itself, and that has yet to come. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to light this thing yet, or where I'm going to store the batteries. I could put a 12-volt car battery in here. That's how much room I've got. Something this big, I don't want to have to run off a wall wart, only because if you can run it off a battery, I certainly have room for batteries. If you can run it off a battery, then you are less restricted in how you can display it. You can put it anywhere, flick a switch. You don't have to worry about where the closest AC power is. So we'll figure all that out together. Join hands, sing hallelujah. We'll be worrying about that next week. So until next week, y'all be safe, be smart. The weather's turning nice. You might want to get outside and breathe some fresh air and sunshine. Be nice to each other. Let me see. Be safe, be smart, be kind, be nice to each other. Be back next week. And we'll hit this Sandcrawler again.